What happens when one of the most respected journalists in television sits down with one of the most controversial figures in modern royalty, and the carefully planned interview spirals completely out of control? What you're about to witness is a clash that left audiences around the world absolutely stunned. A moment where politeness shattered and real feelings erupted on live television. Before we get into this explosive encounter, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me whose side you're on, because trust me, you're going to have an opinion by the end of this. The studio lights were blazing hot that evening as Meghan Markle settled into the cream-colored armchair across from Diane Sawyer. The set had been designed to feel intimate, almost like a living room conversation between friends, but there was nothing friendly about the tension that hung in the air from the very first moment. Meghan wore a simple black dress, her hair pulled back in a sleek bun, her posture perfect. Diana, dressed in a navy blazer, had her notes arranged neatly on the small table beside her, her famous penetrating gaze already fixed on her guest. "Meghan, thank you for being here," Diana began, her voice carrying that trademark warmth that had put countless interviewees at ease over her decades-long career. "I know this hasn't been an easy time for you." "Thank you for having me, Diana," Meghan replied, a practiced smile crossing her face. "I think it's important to set the record straight." Diana nodded slowly. But something in her expression suggested she wasn't going to let this be just another platform for rehearsed talking points. "That's exactly what I want to help you do. But to set the record straight, we need to talk about some difficult things. Are you prepared for that?" There was a flicker of something in Meghan's eyes, uncertainty perhaps, or maybe irritation. "I'm prepared to tell my truth." "Yes, your truth," Diana repeated, letting the words hang in the air for just a moment too long. "That's an interesting phrase. I've noticed you use it quite often. But truth, real truth, isn't something that belongs to one person, is it? Truth is just truth." The first crack appeared in Meghan's composure. Her smile tightened. "I think when you've been lied about as much as I have, you understand that there are different perspectives on events." "Perspectives, yes," Diana agreed, leaning forward slightly. "But facts are facts. So let's start with some facts. You've made some very serious allegations about your time in the royal family. Allegations about racism, about being denied mental health support, about feeling trapped. These are heavy accusations." "They're not accusations," Meghan interjected, her voice rising just slightly. "They're experiences." "My experiences?" Diana didn't break eye contact. "Experiences that you shared in a very public way with a very large audience. That damaged the reputation of an institution and specific people who were not given the opportunity to respond in real time. Did you consider the consequences of that?" "Did I consider the consequences?" Meghan's laugh was sharp, almost bitter. "Diana, with all due respect, did anyone consider the consequences of what was being done to me? I was suicidal. I told people I needed help, and I was told it wouldn't be good for the institution." "You were told that?" Diana pressed. "By whom? Who specifically told you that you couldn't get help?" Meghan shifted in her seat. "I'm not going to name names and subject people to the same kind of attacks I've endured. But you've already subjected them to attacks," Diana countered, her voice still even but carrying a new edge. "You've painted a picture of a cold, uncaring, possibly racist family without giving specific details that would allow anyone to actually address your claims. That's not transparency, Meghan. That's accusation without accountability." The audience, which had been silent up until this point, seemed to collectively hold its breath. This was not going the way anyone had expected. Meghan's publicist, watching from the wings, felt her stomach drop. Accountability? Meghan's voice was incredulous now. "You want to talk about accountability? Where was the accountability when the tabloids were destroying me daily? Where was the accountability when members of the family were briefing against me, leaking stories, making me out to be some sort of villain? Did they?" Diana asked simply. "Or did the tabloids do what tabloids do, which is create drama and conflict because it sells papers? Can you prove that family members were briefing against you?" "I know what I know," Meghan said, her jaw set. "That's not proof," Diana replied. "And this is the problem, isn't it? You know what you know, you believe what you believe, but when you make public statements that affect real people and real institutions, there has to be more than just your feelings. My feelings." Meghan's voice went up an octave. "Diana, I'm talking about my mental health, about contemplating ending my life, and you're reducing it to feelings. Diana held up a hand. I'm not reducing anything. Mental health is incredibly serious, and if you were struggling, that's tragic and important. But, Meghan, and I say this with genuine concern, you had resources. You're married into one of the wealthiest families in the world. You had access to the best doctors, the best therapists, the best care money could buy. Are you telling me that you, as a grown woman, couldn't find a way to get help? The question hung in the air like a grenade. Meghan's face flushed. It wasn't about money. It was about permission. It was about the institution controlling every aspect of my life. But you weren't a prisoner, Diana said, her voice softening slightly, but her words remaining sharp. You could leave the palace. You did leave the palace, multiple times, for personal trips, for events. You're telling me that in all of that freedom, you couldn't find 2 hours to see a therapist privately. You're twisting this, Meghan said, her voice shaking now. You're making it sound like I didn't try, like I didn't ask for help. I'm not twisting anything. I'm asking questions. That's what journalists do. Diana leaned back slightly, her gaze never wavering. And here's another question. You've talked a lot about privacy, about wanting to live a private life, about the intrusion of the media. Yet you've done multiple high-profile interviews. You've participated in documentaries. You've made sure your voice is heard at every opportunity. How do you reconcile wanting privacy while also seeking the spotlight? That's not fair, Meghan protested. I'm using my voice to defend myself, because if I don't, who will? The narrative was being controlled by people who wanted to destroy me. Or, Diana suggested, the narrative was simply the media doing what it does with every public figure. And you, perhaps because of your own background in entertainment, expected to be able to control it in a way that just isn't possible for someone in your position. Meghan shook her head firmly. No, this wasn't normal media coverage. This was targeted, it was cruel, and it was allowed to continue because certain people benefited from me being the villain. Who benefited? Diana asked directly. Let's name them. If people conspired against you, if there was a coordinated effort to destroy you, then say who was involved. Otherwise, these accusations float out there, poisoning relationships and reputations without anyone being able to properly respond. I've said I won't name names, Meghan repeated, her frustration evident. Then how can anyone believe you? Diana's question was blunt. If you won't provide details, if you won't be specific, if everything is vague allegations and hurt feelings, how is anyone supposed to know what really happened? And more importantly, how is any of this supposed to lead to resolution or healing? Meghan looked like she wanted to stand up and walk off the set. Her hands gripped the arms of her chair. I came here to tell my story, not to be interrogated like I'm the one who did something wrong. You're not being interrogated, Diana said calmly. You're being interviewed. There's a difference. An interview means I ask difficult questions. If all you wanted was a sympathetic platform to repeat your talking points, you should have chosen a different journalist. The tension in the studio was suffocating. Camera operators exchanged nervous glances. The producer was frantically typing on her tablet, trying to decide if they should cut to commercial early. But Diane Sawyer, veteran of 1,000 tough interviews, showed no signs of backing down, and Meghan Markle, clearly unprepared for this level of pushback, looked like she was about to either explode or break down entirely. Let's talk about something else then, Diana continued, not giving Meghan a moment to recover. Let's talk about your relationship with your family, your father specifically. You've cut him out of your life completely, haven't you? Meghan's expression hardened immediately. My father betrayed me. He sold stories to the tabloids, he staged photographs, he lied repeatedly. That's why I don't have a relationship with him. He also raised you, Diana said quietly. He paid for your education, supported your career, was by your side for decades. And now he's elderly, reportedly in poor health, and you haven't spoken to him in years. Does that not strike you as cruel? Cruel. Meghan's voice cracked. What's cruel is what he did to me, what he continues to do. He speaks to the press constantly, saying horrible things. He says he wants to see you, Diana corrected. He says he wants to meet his grandchildren. He says he's hurt and confused about why his daughter won't speak to him. Those aren't horrible things, Meghan. That's a father in pain. A father who chose money and fame over his daughter, Meghan shot back. He had a choice. He made it. Diana paused, letting the words settle. Isn't that exactly what people say about you? That you chose money and fame, that you wanted the crown without the responsibility, the platform without the duty. How is what he did different from what you did? Meghan's eyes widened. That is completely different. I left because I was being destroyed. He betrayed me for a paycheck. Did he, though? Diana pressed. Or did a confused elderly man, suddenly thrust into the most intense media scrutiny imaginable, make some mistakes? Did he panic? Did he handle things badly? Probably. But did he deserve to lose his daughter forever over it? And more than that, do your children deserve to never know their grandfather? My children deserve to be protected from toxic people, Meghan said firmly. I won't apologize for that. Toxic people, Diana repeated. That's a very popular phrase these days. Cut out the toxic people. Protect your peace. Set your boundaries. It all sounds very healthy and modern. But, Meghan, when you look around your life and realize that you've cut out your father, most of your siblings, your husband's family, and numerous former friends, don't you ever wonder if maybe the common denominator is you? The audience gasped. It was a brutal question, delivered with surgical precision. Meghan looked genuinely shocked, her mouth opening and closing without sound for a moment. That's incredibly offensive, she finally managed. It's a fair question, Diana insisted. You're asking the world to believe that everyone around you has failed you, that everyone has betrayed you, that you're the victim in every single relationship that's fallen apart. At some point, basic logic suggests that we need to examine your role in these patterns. I am not going to sit here and be blamed for other people's bad behavior, Meghan said, her voice rising. I tried with my family. I tried with his family. I reached out. I was kind. I followed the rules, and I was still treated terribly. According to you, Diana said, but we've only heard your side. And your side keeps changing, doesn't it? In one interview, you say one thing. In another interview, the story shifts slightly. Details that seemed important disappear. New grievances emerge. It becomes very hard to know what actually happened. My story hasn't changed, Meghan protested. It has, though, Diana countered, pulling out a tablet. You said in one interview that you didn't know much about the royal family before you met Harry, that you weren't really aware of what you were getting into. But then photos emerged of you as a young woman watching William and Catherine's wedding, reading books about Diana. So which is it? Were you naive, or were you very aware? Meghan's face flushed deeper. I knew of them, of course. Everyone knows of them. But I didn't know what the reality of that life would be like. No one can know that until they live it. That's fair, Diana acknowledged. But you see how the inconsistency creates doubt. And there are other inconsistencies. You've said you felt unsupported. Yet there are numerous reports of staff being hired specifically to help you, of family members reaching out, of attempts being made to help you adjust. Those reports come from multiple sources, not just palace officials. Those sources are lying, Meghan said flatly. They're protecting the institution. All of them, Diana asked skeptically. Every single person who said anything contrary to your narrative is lying or protecting the institution. Meghan, that level of conspiracy would require extraordinary coordination. It's possible, but it's also possible that your perception of events doesn't match reality. My perception is my reality, Meghan insisted. No, Diana said firmly. Your perception is your perception. Reality is reality. And when you make public accusations, when you damage people's reputations, when you cause international incidents, we need to deal in reality, not perception. Meghan stood up suddenly, startling everyone in the studio. I don't have to listen to this. I came here in good faith, and you're attacking me. Sit down, Meghan. Diana's voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. I'm not attacking you. I'm doing my job. And you agreed to this interview. You wanted this platform. Now you're going to stay and finish what you started. For a long moment, it seemed like Meghan might actually walk off. The camera zoomed in on her face, capturing every flicker of emotion. Her publicist started to move from the wings, but Diana held up a hand, stopping her. Sit down, Diana repeated, softer this time. Please. Slowly, visibly shaking, Meghan sat back down. You don't understand what it was like, she said, her voice barely above a whisper now. You can't understand. You're right, Diana agreed. I can't fully understand your experience. No one can fully understand anyone else's experience. But Meghan, and I want you to really hear this, your pain doesn't excuse everything. Your suffering doesn't give you the right to hurt others. And your truth doesn't override everyone else's truth. So I'm just supposed to stay silent? Meghan asked, tears now visible in her eyes. I'm supposed to let them destroy me and say nothing? I'm not saying that, Diana replied. But there's a difference between defending yourself and declaring war. There's a difference between setting boundaries and burning bridges. There's a difference between sharing your story and weaponizing your pain against anyone who disagrees with you. I never wanted any of this, Meghan said, wiping at her eyes. I just wanted to be happy. I just wanted to be loved. And you are loved, Diana said, her voice finally showing some gentleness. Your husband loves you. Your children love you. You have people who support you. But Meghan, love isn't unconditional acceptance of everything you do. Love sometimes means people who care about you telling you hard truths. Like what? Meghan challenged. What hard truth do you think I need to hear? Diana took a breath. That you're not always the victim. That sometimes you make choices that hurt people. That your actions have consequences. That being progressive and modern and speaking your truth doesn't automatically make you right. And that if you want any kind of peace, any kind of real happiness, you're going to have to stop fighting long enough to look honestly at your own behavior. The silence that followed was deafening. Meghan stared at Diana with an expression that cycled through shock, hurt, anger, and something that might have been recognition. The cameras captured it all. This moment of raw vulnerability from someone who had spent so much time carefully controlling her image. You think I'm a bad person, Meghan finally said. I don't think you're a bad person, Diana corrected. I think you're a hurt person who's hurting other people. I think you're someone with real grievances, who has let those grievances consume you. I think you're talented and intelligent and capable of good things. But right now, you're so focused on being right and being vindicated that you can't see the damage you're causing. The damage I'm causing? Meghan's voice rose again. What about the damage that was caused to me? Both can be true, Diana said evenly. You can be someone who is hurt and someone who hurts others. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. But here's what I'm struggling with, and I think what a lot of people are struggling with. You left the royal family because you said you wanted privacy, you wanted peace, you wanted to protect your mental health. Yet since leaving, you've been more public than ever. You've signed massive deals with streaming platforms. You've done interviews, podcasts, a documentary series. You've written or participated in books. Where's the privacy? Where's the peace? Meghan wiped her face, smearing her makeup slightly. I had to make a living. We were cut off financially. Diana's eyebrows raised. You were cut off after you left. And even then, Harry inherited millions from his mother. You both had substantial resources. The idea that you were destitute is simply not true. So let's be honest about what this was really about. It wasn't about making a living. It was about controlling your narrative and monetizing your story. There's nothing wrong with telling my story, Meghan said defensively. There isn't, Diana agreed. But there's something deeply troubling about profiting from family trauma, while simultaneously claiming you want privacy and healing. You can't have it both ways. You can't sell your pain and then complain when people are interested in your life. So I should have just stayed silent and let them win, Meghan challenged. There's that word again. Win. Diana leaned forward, her eyes intense. Meghan, this isn't a competition. This isn't a war with winners and losers. These are human relationships. This is a family. And I have to ask you something, and I want you to really think before you answer. Do you actually want reconciliation, or do you want revenge? The question landed like a physical blow. Meghan's mouth opened, but no sound came out immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. I want them to admit what they did. Admit what specifically? Diana pressed. What exact actions do you need acknowledged? Because from the outside, it looks like you want them to confess to sins you've never clearly articulated. You want them to apologize for things you haven't specifically accused them of. How can there ever be reconciliation when you won't define what would satisfy you? I've been very clear about what happened, Meghan insisted. You haven't, though, Diana countered. You've been vague. You've hinted. You've implied. You've said there were conversations about your son's skin color, but you won't say who had them. You've said you were denied help, but you won't explain the actual mechanism by which that happened. You've said people were cruel, but you won't detail what they actually did or said. This vagueness serves you because it means you can never be proven wrong. But it's devastating for everyone else because they're fighting shadows. Meghan shook her head repeatedly. I was trying to protect people by not naming names. Or, Diana suggested, you were making it impossible for anyone to defend themselves. Think about it, Meghan. If someone accuses you of something terrible but won't tell you exactly what you supposedly did, how can you possibly respond? How can you apologize? How can you make amends? You can't. And maybe that's the point. That's not fair, Meghan whispered. Life isn't fair, Diana said bluntly. You of all people should know that. But we still have to try to be fair to each other. And you haven't been fair. You've used the most public platforms imaginable to damage people who, by protocol and tradition, can't fully respond. That's not bravery, Meghan. That's not speaking truth to power. That's using your power to hurt people who can't hit back. The monarchy is not powerless, Meghan argued. No, but the individuals in it are constrained in ways you're not, Diana replied. And you know that. You lived it. You understand that they can't just go on television and have a back and forth with you, so you've taken advantage of that constraint. You've said your piece knowing they can't fully respond, and then you've framed their silence as guilt. Meghan looked around the studio, as if searching for an ally, but every face she saw was watching her with a mixture of sympathy and judgment. You're making me out to be some kind of villain. I'm making you out to be human, Diana corrected. Humans are complicated. They can be victims and perpetrators. They can be right about some things and wrong about others. They can have legitimate grievances and still handle those grievances badly. That's what I see when I look at your situation. Not a villain, not a saint. Just a flawed person who's made some good choices and some very questionable ones. I did the best I could, Meghan said, tears flowing freely now. Maybe you did, Diana allowed. But your best wasn't good enough, was it? Because here you are, years later, still unhappy, still fighting, still trying to convince the world that you're the good guy in this story. When does it end, Meghan? When do you get to be happy? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've traded one prison for another. You left the palace, but you're still trapped by your anger and your need to be validated. I deserve to be validated, Meghan insisted. I deserve to have my pain acknowledged. You do, Diana agreed. Every person deserves that. But Meghan, you're seeking that validation from people who can't or won't give it to you. And while you're waiting for them to acknowledge your pain, you're missing your life. Your children are growing up. Your husband is caught between you and his family. You're spending your energy on battles that can't be won, instead of building the life you claim you wanted. So I should just forget everything that happened? Meghan asked bitterly. No, Diana said softly. You should forgive, not for them, for you. Because this anger, this bitterness, this constant need to relitigate the past, it's poisoning you. I can see it. Everyone watching can see it. You're not free, Meghan. You're as trapped now as you ever were, except now the bars are made of your own resentment. Meghan was fully crying now, her composure completely shattered. You don't know what it's like to be hated by millions of people. You're right, I don't, Diana acknowledged. But I do know that you're not hated by everyone. You have supporters. You have people who believe in you. But you've become so focused on the people who don't like you that you can't see the people who do. And more than that, you've made being hated part of your identity. It's become your story. The misunderstood Duchess, the victim of the establishment. And as long as that's your story, you can never move past it. What do you want me to do? Meghan asked, her voice breaking. Just pretend everything's fine. I want you to stop pretending everything's their fault, Diana replied. I want you to take some responsibility for your part in how things fell apart. I want you to acknowledge that while you may have been wronged in some ways, you've also wronged others. I want you to understand that healing doesn't come from revenge or vindication. It comes from letting go. I can't, Meghan whispered. I can't let go. Not until they admit what they did. Then you'll be waiting forever, Diana said with finality. And that's a tragedy. Not for them, for you. Because you have so much potential, so much you could do with your platform. But instead, you're stuck in this cycle, and you're dragging your family into it with you. The studio was absolutely silent. Even the crew had stopped moving. This had gone beyond a typical celebrity interview. This had become something raw and real, a confrontation that exposed truths neither participant had fully expected to face. I think we should end this, Meghan said finally, standing up again. This time, her voice was steady but hollow. I don't think there's anything more to say. There's always more to say, Diana replied, but she didn't stop Meghan this time. But you're right. We've said enough for today." Meghan began to remove her microphone, her hands shaking. "You ambushed me. This wasn't supposed to be this kind of interview. You were supposed to be asked questions," Diana said, standing as well. "That's exactly what happened. The problem isn't that I ambushed you. The problem is that you expected another sympathetic platform, and I refused to give you one. You expected to control the narrative, and I wouldn't let you." "You humiliated me," Meghan said, her voice cold now, the tears gone, replaced by something harder. "No," Diana said firmly. "You came on national television without being prepared to defend your positions. You came with talking points instead of truth. You came expecting softball questions and got journalism instead. That's not humiliation. That's accountability. And if you felt humiliated, maybe that's because deep down you know that some of what I've said is true." Meghan didn't respond. She simply turned and walked off the set, her publicist rushing to meet her, her security detail moving quickly to surround her. The cameras followed her exit, capturing every step of her departure. Diana stood alone on the set, watching her go. She turned to face the main camera, her expression unreadable. "We'll be right back," she said calmly, as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. "So what do you think? Was Diane Sawyer right to push that hard? Or did she cross a line?" Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure you subscribe, because we'll be covering all the fallout from this explosive interview. Who do you think won this confrontation? Let me know in the comments.